the girl everyone trusted. In the quiet village of Abodo Oma, where the morning cockcrow was louder than any alarm, lived a young girl named Ada. People in the village said Ada was born with a pure heart. She was the kind of girl everyone loved, respectful, gentle, and always smiling even when things were hard. Her parents were farmers. Every day, before the sun rose, her father would carry his hoe and head to the farm, while her mother prepared vegetables to sell in the village market. Ada was the eldest of 4 children. Ikin, Obina, and Gozi were her younger ones. She cared for them like a second mother. She would fetch water, cook their food, and still help them with schoolwork. Even when she was tired, Ada never complained. She used to say, "If I help my family today, God will bless my tomorrow." Everyone in Abodo Oma respected her. The elders would smile and say, "That girl will go far." Her teachers often used her as an example in class. And in church, she sang in the choir with a voice so soft, it could calm any troubled heart. Ada had dreams, big dreams. She wanted to finish school, learn fashion designing, and open a shop where she would sew beautiful clothes for women across Nigeria. But life in the village was not easy. Sometimes there was no money for school books or even food. Still, Ada kept her faith strong. She believed one day, things would change. Then, one bright morning, change came knocking. A letter arrived from the city, from her mother's elder sister, Auntie Rose. In the letter, Auntie Rose said she wanted Ada to come and live with her in the city. She promised to enroll Ada in a fashion shop and teach her everything she needed to succeed. When Ada heard it, her joy was endless. She ran around the compound, shouting, "Mama, God has answered our prayer." Her mother smiled, but her eyes were wet with tears. She was happy, but also afraid. The city was a different world. That evening, as the sun went down, Ada's parents sat her down under the mango tree in front of their house. Her father spoke first. "My daughter, remember the home you are coming from. In this world, not everyone who smiles loves you." Then her mother added softly, "Ada, the city shines, but not everything that shines is gold. Don't let city life change your heart. Respect yourself, work hard, and pray always." Ada nodded, promising she would never forget who she was. The next morning, the whole family escorted her to the bus park. Even her neighbors came to wave goodbye. Her siblings cried as the bus engine started. Ada hugged them tightly and said, "I'll make you all proud. I'll come back with something better." As the bus drove away, her mother's voice echoed through the dusty road. "Ada, remember who you are." Ada smiled through her tears and waved until she could no longer see them. Her heart was full of hope, full of dreams. The road to the city was long. She looked out of the window and watched the tall trees and red sun fade into buildings and noise. It was her first time leaving home, and she promised herself she would not disappoint her family. When she finally arrived, her aunt welcomed her warmly. Auntie Rose's home was small but neat. She gave Ada food, showed her where to sleep, and told her they would start work at the fashion shop the next day. At night, Ada couldn't sleep. She looked out of the window and saw city lights shining like stars. She whispered to herself, "Mama was right, the city really shines. I just pray I don't forget who I am." The next morning, Ada began her new life. The fashion shop was full of colors, red, blue, green fabrics hanging on the wall. She loved the sound of the sewing machines and the smell of new cloth. Every day, she learned something new: how to cut materials, how to measure customers, and how to smile politely. Her aunt was proud of her. She often said, "Ada, if you keep working like this, you'll soon open your own shop." Everything seemed perfect. Ada would come home from work tired but happy. She even sent small gifts to her mother in the village. She felt her dreams were finally coming true. But life has a way of changing when you least expect it. One afternoon, while returning from work, Ada met two girls outside the compound, Sandra and Favor. They were beautiful, confident, and full of laughter. They lived just a few houses away. Sandra waved at her and said, "Hi, you're new here, right? I see you going to that fashion shop every day. Don't you ever relax?" Ada laughed shyly, "I'm just trying to learn fast." Favor smiled and said, You're a village girl, right? Don't worry, we'll show you how to enjoy city life." They laughed and walked away. Ada didn't think much of it. But that small conversation was the beginning of something that would change her story forever. As night fell, Ada sat by her window again, looking at the city lights. They were shining brighter than ever. She remembered her mother's warning and whispered, "I won't forget who I am. I promise." But she didn't know that sometimes, temptation doesn't come with noise. It comes softly, with a smile. For the first few weeks, Ada's life in the city moved smoothly. She woke up early, swept the compound, helped her aunt cook, and went to the fashion shop. Her aunt trusted her completely. She saw in Ada the same discipline her sister had raised her with. But something was slowly changing around Ada. Every evening, she would see Sandra and Favor passing by, dressed in fine clothes, with shiny hair, long nails, and perfumes that filled the air. They always looked happy, always laughing. Sometimes they stopped to talk. They told Ada stories about parties, big hotels, and people who could change your life overnight. Sandra would say, "Ada, you're a fine girl. Why waste your youth sitting behind a sewing machine?" Favor would add, "You need to explore. You're in the city now, this is where dreams happen." At first, Ada only smiled and ignored them. But as days passed, their words began to stay in her mind. When she looked at her old clothes, she started to feel small. She wondered, maybe I really need to enjoy myself too. One evening, Sandra and Favor visited her aunt's house. They came with soft drinks and laughter. Auntie Rose welcomed them politely and left them to talk. Sandra said, "Ada, tomorrow is Sunday. Let's go out after church. Just to eat and relax. You deserve a little fun." Ada hesitated. She thought about her aunt and her mother's warning. But Favor smiled sweetly and said, "It's just lunch, not trouble." So Ada agreed. The next day, after church, they met near the bus stop. Sandra wore a bright red dress, Favor wore gold, and they had makeup that made them shine under the sun. They took Ada to a beautiful restaurant. For the first time, Ada saw food she had only watched in adverts: chicken, ice cream, and fruit drinks. They laughed, took pictures, and told stories. Ada felt happy. When they left the restaurant, Sandra whispered, "See, I told you life can be sweet. You just need to stop acting too serious." From that day, Ada started spending more time with them. Every week, there was something new: an outing, a small party, a late-night event. She began to come home later and later. At first, her aunt didn't say much. But one night, when Ada returned home tired, Auntie Rose was waiting by the door. "Ada," she said softly, "I'm not angry. But you've changed. You used to be focused. Now you laugh with strangers and forget your work. My daughter, city life can be sweet at the beginning, but bitter at the end." Ada lowered her head. "I'm sorry, Auntie. It won't happen again." She meant it, but the pull of the new life was already strong. Weeks passed. Sandra and Favor began taking Ada to new places, places she had never imagined. They called them private events. The music was loud, the drinks were free, and the people seemed rich. Ada didn't know that most of those smiles were fake. One night, when they came back late, Favor said quietly, "Ada, you know, we could help you earn more. You're beautiful and smart. There are people who would pay you just to spend time with them. Ada was shocked. Pay me? For what? She asked. Sandra laughed lightly. Don't be so innocent. You're not in the village anymore. You can make quick money, no stress, no sewing machine. Ada froze. Her mother's words echoed again. The city shines, but not everything that shines is gold. She stood up and said, No. I didn't come here for that. The girls laughed and said, Suit yourself. But don't say we didn't try to help. That night, Ada couldn't sleep. She looked at herself in the mirror and whispered, Who am I becoming? The next day at work, she tried to focus, but her mind was heavy. Her aunt noticed and asked gently, Ada, are you okay? Ada forced a smile. Yes, auntie, I'm fine. But she wasn't fine. Part of her heart wanted to stay good, the other part was being pulled by the new friends she didn't want to lose. Sandra and Favor stopped visiting for a few days. Ada thought maybe it was over. But one evening, they showed up again, this time with a car waiting outside. Sandra smiled and said, Ada, we're going to a small party tonight. You'll love it. No pressure, no funny things, just music and fun. Come on, you've been too quiet lately. Ada hesitated, then sighed. Okay, just for a short time. As she entered the car, she didn't know that this night would change everything. It was the beginning of a dark chapter she never imagined would be hers.